I'm Shay McArdle, work as part of the Kx Ventures team. Been in New York as of 2 weeks. Had been predominantly based between our head office in Uri and London. Slowly but surely getting used to the humidity, but we'll get there eventually. Talking briefly around what are the key drivers and what we look for. First and foremost, we don't position ourselves as a venture capital firm. We're very much a tech company first and foremost. You know, there's been people in this game for 20, 30 years with a lot deeper pockets and a lot greater track record than us in this space. So we lead with our technology. And that being said, the premise behind what we're trying to do is make our technology accessible for early stage companies that we believe KDB can be a game changer for. And there's sort of a three-pronged approach to that. So that's part of the tech entrepreneurs at the bottom. So, you know, we're always looking for exciting teams, technologies and product that we think we can turbocharge essentially. And as part of that as well, we do have the means to deploy capital. On occasion, we also have a very strong network of VC partners. We're very well perceived in that space, particularly in London and getting better over here as well. We're seeing more and more introductions from other VCs who recognise the power of the technology and want to bring us into the equation. We've now done, in the last 18 months, we've done about 20 investments and partnerships with early stage companies. I've been very strictly told I've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to keep thematically and talk about some of the things that we're seeing and list some of the examples. So I've just highlighted some of the key trends that we're seeing and some of the companies that we're working with. I'll talk briefly about some of them. Some of them you may have heard of previously, particularly in the fintech space with Cobalt and Quantile, and we might even have some of the guys working on those projects in the room. But I'll largely highlight some of the other ones, the more, I guess, particularly the early stage ones, so the likes of RX Data Science and Brainwave Bank. Brainwave Bank are early stage company based out of Belfast who have a medical headset, and what they're looking to do is collect the world's largest database of brainwave signals, and they're looking to analyse all of those in real time using KDB. Very exciting team coming out of Queen's University in Belfast approached us, had seen different demos of the tech and wanted to get their hands on it. Another interesting use case is Guyana, based in London. Very interesting company again. They have a very strong network of data partners, so looking at telcos, payment providers. They would do a lot of work in the retail and prop tech space. Basically, if you're looking at the likes of Pret a Manger are looking to open up a new store, they want to know where's getting the most traffic, who's spending time there, where are they spending, where are they going to look competitor spaces, and which locations are at a premium. Those guys, again, interestingly, we met them at a conference in Helsinki. Got speaking to the founder, who's a very inspirational woman, and she wanted to get a trial license of KDB up and running, got it embedded in their system with their CTO, and they fell in love with the syntax and wanted to get up to speed on it straight away. So it's always good whenever they're coming to us saying, we love your tech, can we use it? Again, cybersecurity is one we're seeing a lot more about, and I guess, you know, part of what's behind this as well is not just, you know, giving our technology to these companies. You know, there's a much broader ecosystem play, and you can see some of the names of the companies that those guys are working with. Again, it's, you know, exposing our technology to some of the world's biggest companies. So the likes of Kx, interesting company in the quantum security space, quantum computing based encryption. You know, the world of quantum computing is coming thick and fast. It's around the corner, and when it does, standard encryption techniques are going to be rendered pretty futile. Those guys are very much ahead of the curve, and are working with BT largely about, on a silicon chip about the size of a 5p pence, around how to use quantum-based encryption techniques, and they're using KDB to do it. So these are some of the key trends that we've done to date. I guess I couldn't speak about 20 or particularly in 10 minutes. So some of the other ones are 3D Earth observation is one we're seeing at work, again, a company in Belfast. Redshift, for any of you who have ever used the app Shazam, those guys, Rahul, the CEO of Redshift, was one of the lead engineers on that product. So they had a pretty successful exit recently, and they're doing a lot of work around email-based phishing attacks for the enterprise. Broadbridge, another company on the West Coast that we're working with around network security. So again, in a quick snapshot, there are some of the early stage examples of companies that are in our portfolio. And I wanted to highlight this. I don't know whether any of you are in the world of startup or venture capital, or looking at interest and content in the world of what makes interesting companies successful. For any of you who are, I would thoroughly recommend the 20-Minute VC podcast. One thing that is always asked to venture partners at the end of each episode is, where their vision lies in working with product, market, and teams. And what drives us, we're probably somewhat different in the sense that we're not a traditional VC, and at the heart of everything we do is looking to find that KX fit. And if we can see that it's a good use case, and if we can see what makes this team uniquely placed to be successful in their market, and if we think the KDB can be a driver in that, then we're more than happy to get on board and work with them. What we look for is this a good fit for us? I know, and it's reciprocal. Typically, we involve in some of our tech engineers and making sure that do these guys need KDB? Is it going to be of any value? And if not, we're getting better at saying, look, this isn't an ideal fit. And what we're seeing, again, I think 20 companies in 18 months, going through the kind of typical POC or pilot phase and getting their hands on the tech is pretty good, and we've got a pretty strong pipeline. So some of the other themes that we're seeing at the minute, and hopefully have announcements in the next couple of weeks in and around some of these. One of the big ones is esports. There's a pretty large land grab at the minute from brands and organisations trying to engage better content with end users. It's the fastest growing sport on the planet. And we're working with a couple of interesting teams around how KDB can enter that market, because the volume of data at play is phenomenal. Another one here on mine is connected vehicles. Recently speaking with one of the world's largest telco companies, and current estimates have connected autonomous vehicles spinning off about 4 terabytes of data per hour. And I guess that's, again, a sign of the market moving in the direction that we like to hear, because volume and velocity of data in that space is phenomenal, and we believe there's a very strong fit for us in that space, and we're working with a lot of teams in and around that. 2 other verticals we're seeing traction in is the insurtech space, and more broadly this whole data as a marketplace, and how do I better process and monetize these reams of data that I'm getting. Insurance is one of the oldest industries out there at the minute, and there's still a lot of innovation and disruption to be had in that space, and a lot of it is centred around how to better access and monetize their data. 2 quick other things I wanted to highlight is, I guess, what we're seeing more broadly across the company. It applies very much in ventures as well. In many cases, it's not a case of a new product being needed in a certain area or a certain industry. In many cases, the product is there and it has been for a long time, and the market needs to catch up. And I think that we're starting to see that with other industries looking towards the financial markets to see how they better solve this big data problem and what they've been using to do so. I think I wanted to just draw a similar analogy in the e-mobility space. So the world's first scooter, it looks very similar to things that you would see flying down Fulton Street or Wall Street, whether using Bird or Lime or whatever it would be. That product iteration took over 100 years, but the tech has been there for a very long time. And we would like to draw a similar analogy in the sense that this big data problem is nothing new, and we're seeing other industries look towards us to see how do we solve this issue. And again, there's a quote from Drucker in the sense that we like to think as well that KDB, when it's used properly, is a very succinct and simple product that does a couple of things very, very well, and that's what makes it breathtakingly efficient. Again, I'm a huge fan of innovation, and more broadly, studied a master's in it, and probably in terms of reading, whether it's Eric Ries or Eric Schmidt, I've done a lot. I don't think my next quote would be on any reading book recommendations of mine, but I think it summarises quite nicely what we like to see from early stage companies and more broadly across the organisation, what we envisage as well. I think it pretty much encapsulates where we're at currently, particularly in the software sprint market, where new product iterations are coming out on a weekly basis. For those of you who can't see, it's a quote from Alice in Wonderland. Not claiming to be a big Lewis Carroll fan right now, but it says, my dear, it's a quote from the Queen to Alice when she touches down in Wonderland. It says, my dear, here we must run as fast as we can just to stay in one place, and if you wish to go anywhere, you must run twice as fast as that. And I think that's what we're seeing broadly across ventures, is with early stage companies trying to catch up with corporates, and the speed at which they're operating and reaching billion-dollar market caps is unprecedented, and we in the ventures arm hope to play a big part in that with early stage companies moving forward. Lastly, contact details if anyone wants to reach out and get in touch. Always interested to hear about new possible ideas or new applications that you think KDB could be used for. We're all ears open. And finally, details on where you can get a drink, I think is probably most applicable in my presentation today. We're just over in the Malt House, so 9 Maiden Lane between Broadway and Nassau. We would love if you would come and join us for a drink and something to eat. I think it's on me to wrap up. I'd just like to thank all of the speakers, for Rebecca for chairing, and thank you all for showing up. Certainly enjoyed some of the talks and hope to continue some of the discussions over the road.